This letter was translated from Russian, found in 2002 in an unnamed settlement near Tixi. My name is Nina Volkov. I was born on June 19th, 1938 on the outskirts of Moscow. There's nothing much to say about my childhood. The Great War separated my family. My father died in the last days of fighting in Germany, and my mother was gone in 1953 in child labor, as my sister Iskra. After that, I was raised by my uncle until I was old enough. At my 19th birthday, I joined the VVS, trying to pursue my dream of being like the brave girls of the 588th Degree Night Bombing Regiment, but I was too short and too weak to pass any physical exam. I ended up being a part of an engineering division in Moscow, learning how to build engine parts for jet planes, electronic components and such things, which I enjoyed. When Yuri Gagarin went to space in 1961, my dream changed. I wanted to be a cosmonaut from the moment that I saw the headlines. I went to Baikonur in 1963. After getting a degree in physics and 1 month after Valentina Tereshkov orbited the Earth, I joined the Soviet space program. But I was never chosen to fly. And on June 16th, 1969, as I saw the American flag in the lunar soil, my dreams were shattered. There was nothing much to do. Our N1 couldn't fly. And without Korolev and Gagarin, our hopes are almost gone. Well, that wasn't until late one night in early December 1970, when 2 party members woke me up and said that I was going to space. They said that I was going to the moon. The reasons were simple. They needed the lightest person available. They needed a woman, and they needed somebody who could calculate orbits on the go. The way to knowledge is easy to understand, but my gender played an important part in the decision. They would never land the first man on the moon, so they might as well land the first woman, and doing so as the first to land at the far side. I didn't even think for a second as the papers were pushed to me. I signed as fast as I could, and for every stroke of my pen, my heart pumped in joy. I was going to the moon. Well, it would take a while. The lunar rocket didn't work, so we used the Soyuz. 7 flights, 1 to the OK module, 1 for the modified Soyuz SK-L3, to get it to the moon orbit and back. 4 flights to refuel and to set systems, and 1 to get the luckiest woman in the country to low Earth orbit to board the ship. It was all made in secrecy. I never knew the rendezvous crew. I never knew when they got everything up to orbit. I had heard about abnormal ballistics tests and some satellite launches, but the idea was very clear. If it worked, the whole world would applaud the great Soviet Union achievement. And if not, well, the first woman to die on the moon is a nice thing to put on a tombstone. And so I trained. I could tell you every inch of the craft. I was able to correct orbit correction vectors while getting slapped on the neck. Every single system was inside of my head. I got ready. The launch happened on November 17th, 1971. I was strapped down at the posterior module, a modified Soyuz craft. I was alone. I had to be alone. The weight was such a big problem that they made me stop drinking any water or eating one day before. The cabin was bare bones and not even a single red star was painted in the fuel lodge, but I wasn't worried. I was happy, and even if the rocket exploded on the pad, I would be a million pieces of happiness spread around. The rocket started, it trembled, and it took a second or 2 to get off the pad. It leaned a 1/4 degree, and corrected itself and tipped over another half. When it finally got straight, it was already over 200 miles per hour, the speed increasing fast. It hit the max aerodynamic pressure 4 seconds after the prediction, but we continued climbing. The blue sky turned blackened as the craft got parallel to the ground, and the fairings deployed. I finally saw it. Our beautiful home. Our fragile blue planet. The last engine detached 12 minutes after launch. It was just me and my craft, drifting for 55 hours until we approached the lunar craft. I depressurized the cabin and I got out to begin the 20 minutes EVA. There was no way to get to the L3 without going outside. It's funny. There I was, protected only by a fabric against the void of space. The hot unfiltered sun baking me. 500 kilometers in altitude, with only 40 minutes of air. Smiling to our planet as if I was safer than everyone. No bombs to drop on my head. No bullets to tear my body apart. No politicians to poison my mind and no religions to sell my soul. And once inside the lunar transfer module, I waited the 23 hours to get to the go window. The moon was waxing and it looked smaller than it appeared from the ground. The engines fired with the soft push, and so my 4 days journey to the satellite began. No TV or radio transmission, just the telemetry data and vital signs hiding as such. For the rest of the world, I was the Luna 17 probe, an audible mention to the now self-proclaimed victory by the Americans. It was hard to breathe and sleeping was terrible. The microgravity was not the problem. It was the random flashes of light caused by radioactive particles hitting my eyes. They kept waking me up. And as all space travelers will tell you, going to the bathroom was a nightmare. The darkness was overwhelming as I went behind the now third quarter moon, another EVA, and I was in the LK detach. I couldn't see anything, and I had to trust my instruments. Landing in the sunlight was not safe. The lander couldn't take the heat once in the surface. They feared that the moon dust could insulate the fuel tank, so I had to land in complete darkness. The landing zone was considered smooth by some reconnaissance crafts. I used my radar and a special camera to see the small space between craters. It was the best shot that anybody would have. 7,000 meters, 6,000 meters, 4,000, 2,000, 100, 500, 200, 100 meters, and my landing lights could be seen reflecting on the grayish surface. I was moving too fast. 50 meters and I was 10 meters a second faster than I should. 10 meters and I was only able to cut half of the speed. I hit the ground and my lander bounced back, tilted left. I had just a few seconds to correct the bouncing, again and again, and once last time before it stopped. Just a single light was working, revealing a crater just a few meters away. I was 2 degrees off my center of mass, so I balanced the fuel in the tanks to avoid tipping over. Just 20 hours of oxygen. I moved fast, no time to celebrate. I looked outside as I opened the hatch. I could see quite a lot after my eyes had adjusted. The stars lit the surface like candles in the ceiling of a large room. I dropped the ladder and I climbed down. Both feet on the ground, the dust floated away in an arch, not as charming as Armstrong. I got my samples in the back, took photos of the lander, the crater, the small flag with no pole on the ground, and one of myself. I started to move towards the top of the crater. It was very easy to move. I took little hops that I learned from my accidental colleagues, one jump at a time, paying attention to not fall down. The only sources of light was the OK, the stars, and my tiny flashlight. When I got to the edge of the crater walls, I took another sample. I was elevated just enough to distinguish the horizon. It was time to talk with Moscow. I had gotten just a small window to do so. The L3 orbiter was going to pass above me and a second satellite would redirect me to Earth. Telemetry sent. The response came a few seconds after, disguised as probe commands. Moscow. Received confirmation. Congratulations, comrade. The country is proud of your achievement. Now proceed to... The message cut off. The signal got interfered by something much stronger. I tried to send another telemetry package, but the L3 was already getting farther away. My next chance would have to wait. And then I started to hear it. At first, it was a faint noise. I assumed that it was radiation, but it just kept getting stronger, and the noise started to appear as rhythm. It was hard to understand, but as the signal got stronger, I recognized it. It was Morse code. That was an SOS, but from whom? I was alone, wasn't I? Trying to identify the radio source was hard. First, I could imagine that it came from orbit, but then I realized that it came from the east. For the clarity of the signal, it couldn't be far. I decided to check it out. I still had 17 hours of oxygen left. I would just walk for an hour, then I would return if I wasn't able to find the source. But I ended up walking a little bit more than that, because after an hour, I was convinced that the signal was from someone. It wasn't precise. It had little variations. It was human. The darkness didn't help. I could only see the horizon and a few feet in front of me, but the rest was a grayish mess of shadows. After I got to the tallest crater that I could find, I started scanning the horizon for anything. The signal was clear, perfectly clear. I had to be in direct line of sight, so I started waving my flashlight, and as I scanned the horizon, I saw a point of light, maybe 600 meters away. It blinked in the same SOS pattern. Running is not the best way to describe my movement. I jumped a foot at a time, getting quite a good speed, always trying to not get too fast as to avoid falling, but trying to get to the light as fast as possible. Maybe it was a previous Russian mission. Well, as pissed off as I would get for not being the first, I was happy to do the first space rescue ever. I climbed the last crater between me and the source, and I could see it clearly as I illuminated it with my flashlight. It was an Apollo capsule. I couldn't believe it. I was in front of a crashed LEM. The landing gears were torn apart. The cabin was ripped open, and the light kept flashing towards me from inside of the window. I approached very slowly, trying not to step on anything sharp. I got to the ladder and I climbed. As my head got near the hatch, I tried to light the inside. There were no astronauts. There was only it. I wish that I didn't go here now. I wish that I never got in the program, never got my degree, never joined the VVS. I wish that I was never born. Please, if you are reading this, we are not alone, and we never were. It looks at us every day, and it hates us. I was able to get back. I survived the gulags that they locked me in. I survive only to tell you this. Please, don't trust it. it doesn't mean us any good. It hates us. It hates us so much for reasons that I will never understand. God forgive me